It's finally here. After quite a while and after quite a lot of builds that I have been uploading for every weapon, but neglecting the greatsword, which is it's weird actually, because the greatsword is one of my favorite weapons in this game. Well, I would say that it's my second favorite weapon in the game, because Berserk for the win. So yeah, it's always nice to be a guts in here. Anyways, I digress. This build is going to be a endgame slash new game plus build that like always, you can use the jaws if you want to. I'm laying the foundation in here so that you can see how really powerful this is. You already saw the potential capacity of this being used against an endgame weapon. The only downside about this type of builds, and the only downside that I see when it comes to the greatsword compared to, for example, the dual blades and the spear, is that this is a weapon that bases the playstyle and most of the damage that you're going to be dishing out. It's a kind of scenario, if you haven't watched my guide on greatsword, it's basically the same thing. The overall gist of everything when it comes to the greatsword is dealing damage, as much damage, at the same time that you are receiving damage, because of the usage of hyper armor, and that's what we're going to be focusing in here. Then again, the only downside about that is that whenever you are trading damage with the enemy, because this is a plated armor, it's really not going to matter that much. But when you're fighting something against something that it's going to inflict status ailments against you, this isn't as effective as a spear, for example. But you can be being like blocking if you're efficient and proficient at that. Let's just talk about the gear, and we're using the Flesh Reaper's armor set right in here. What is it that this does? Well, a nice little bonus in here is that the brutal attack by 50% decreases, gives you a 100% chance to decrease the damage by 50% from the next attack. So you won't be doing brutal attacks as much as possible, because our armor, we are already beefy as it is, because we're using plated armor, so that's actually kind of nice. Now, charged attack. That's going to be the quintessential part of everything, because most of our damage is going to be coming from charge attacks. We are going to be dealing as much charge attacks as possible. And then you have the received stamina damage decreased by 15%. This is also something that's going to scale from strength, and that's going to be an inherent part of the build. Remember that the received stamina damage decrease is that every time that the enemy deals damage to you, they also deal damage to your stamina, preventing from you to continuing your actions. On a greatsword, we want to diminish that as much as we can possibly do, because mainly and purely we are going to continue our combos after we receive damage, so we need to diminish that as much as possible. And then we have the charge attack stamina increased by 15%. Then the limit break apex. What this does is that it allows you to perform some filthy, nasty, broken, and very powerful heavy attacks. Charged heavy attacks. The legendary version of the weapon, the greatsword, also gives you the Phantom Thanatos wave, which is going to furthermore increase the one skill that we are going to be using to furthermore increase the damage of our charge attacks. For the accessories, we're actually using the Necklace of the Untold Truth and the Fugitive Mage's Ring, which they come from the Fugitive's Mage armor set, because it gives you 10% more damage increase. Now the perks on the weapons, you will see that I do not have ideally what I want to have when it comes to the damage multiplier increases. Because it's expensive. So it's very expensive, and I do make a lot of builds. I do have a lot of different armor sets, but I will give you what you need to do if you want to streamline your character and make this as a base, something that's always going to be working for you, and that's amazing. But you want to have the damage increase percentage should be charge attack damage increase percentage. The attack damage should be charge attack damage. The main difference is that, yes, your basic attacks are not going to be benefiting from anything from that, but like I said, on the playstyle, once I show you the combos that we're going to be using, everything, even our basic attacks are always going to be charged attacks. Like everything that we do in here, always, at all times, it's always going to be charged attack. The damages increases that you will see in here, they reach a maximum of 6.5%, I believe. I have the 6 in here, I have 3.9 in here. This is kind of like a medium in between, and then we have the 4.5%. A damage increase multiplier for a charge attack nearly doubles this, because it gives you like as a maximum around 9.8%, meaning that if you place all of that stuff into your the ring, into your amulet, your pendant, you could easily get like 50% more than the damage that I'm reaching in here. But then again, that's too much commitment. It's very expensive. The damage that you're going to be seeing in here, it's already amazing, but I've been farming and farming and farming and farming, and I have not been able. You're also going to be burning lots of materials to, sometimes you are going to be crafting new gear. Sometimes crafting new gear is going to be amazing, because you do not want to be wasting the materials that you want to reestablish the cost for upgraded armor. But yes, the charge attack is going to be king in here, because we have Savage Momentum. What the Savage Momentum does is that it allows you to charge the swift attacks. We're not going to be using Overwhelm, because everything comes as a charge attack built in here. So we want to have the Mortal Blow, which basically allows us that our basic combo that we'll discuss later on the combos, it's always going to be charge attacks, and we're always going to have hyper armor, and we're always going to be dealing more damage depending on the damage that we also receive while we have the hyper armor. And then you have the Nascence, which basically allows you to chain a Mortal Blow, which is right in here, to charge the heavy attack after dodges or sprint attacks. And then we have the Bloodshed, which basically is an improved version of the charge attack follow-up right in there. We are going to have the Manifest of Power, which basically allows you to increase the reach of your charge attacks, the Ghost on block, that allows you to cancel a charge attack if you see that you're going to receive damage. Usually you want to receive the damage, but if you know that's an attack that it's like an unblockable, not an unblockable, something that is going to interrupt your hyper armor, because while being hyper armor can still be interrupted. If you feel that the attack is like too powerful, then you can use this. And also one more thing that you need to have in mind is that our main means, this is a build that is going to naturally be using lots of fury, lots of spirit. So our main means of building that, because our combos, while amazing, are not going to be that fast. It's going to take for them quite a while to reach those furies and spirit boss. Then you are going to be performing Brink Gods, which is why you're going to need to max out the defense to get more spirit when you have a Brink God. It's also going to decrease the stamina amount when you successfully Brink Gods, but also it's very important to have the counters right in here. Then the most important thing is going to be Heat of Battle, which is going to increase the poise that you have, and you're going to receive less damage when you are attacking. At the same time, we have the Indomitable, which basically increases the spirit you gain when you're charging your attacks, but also Heavy Pressure, because it makes it so that your charge attacks, if you continue them like we are doing so in here, they are going to be faster. The final component of the build is going to be the Spirit Boost, which is going to give you more spirit whenever you break enemy stances, which is going to be happening all the time. And then we have the Limit Break that allows you to charge an additional level of a potent blow. The armor set gives you the apex. This is the basic of the armor set that gives you the heaviest, beefiest, most damaging, most filthiest attack that you have on the game, I believe, right now, actually. If you have the legendary version, it's going to improve your Phantom Thanatos wave. This is a little bit tricky, so let me explain to you how does this actually work. So basically, this is something that you want to be using at all times. If you have the if you charge this, then again it's going to be benefiting from the charge extra damage multipliers and everything that you have. But essentially this gives you a buff, and that buffs, what it does is that every time that you're doing charge attacks, it provides like these waves of damage that they deal, not only stamina damage but base damage to the enemy, and the damage that they deal, it's actually quite substantial. If you pair that up, that we're always charging heavy attacks, we always have the waves. Now there's something very interesting in here, that your Phantom, if you charge it while you have the effect, the Phantom is going to follow up the attack as well. And the other good thing about this is that even though that it has like the hyper armor, not only the hyper armor, but if your Phantom sees that you're going to be interrupted, the Phantom is going to counter attack so that you continue the animation. But more often than not, this is something that you want to be using just to buff your character, because everything else, everything from the damage is going to be in the combos, is going to be coming from your regular charge attacks. So the stats of a character are always going to be pretty straightforward, and as a matter of fact, I would advise for you to lower that endurance that I have right there, because it's not going to be, it is going to be needed, but this is much more like a passive kind of character. You do want to have the 60 vitality, and this being plated armor, and this is something that you're not going to get until the end game, so you should be fine to get this. The strength is the scaling of your main weapon, but also it's going to decrease the stamina that you receive as damage whenever they deal damage to you. Not only that, it's going to give you weight capacity so that you can use the plated armor with a B on agility. So it's not going to be an A, but we're not going to be dodging that much, so we're not really going to mind that much. So there is indeed that. So those are your three main stats, and remember that at 48 strength, that's when you're going to have a B, so that you can have a little bit more endurance to raise your stamina for you to continue the combos. So the combos that you are going to be using as a bread and butter is going to be charged X and Y, and that is an infinite combo. It cannot be interrupted. Well, it can be interrupted, but you have hyper armor. What I mean when I say that it cannot be interrupted is that so long as you have stamina for it, you're always going to have it. But remember that you always want to have your effect from your actual skill right in here active, so that every time that you're charging every single heavy attack in here, it's always going to be producing the waves as well that are going to be dealing damage to the stamina of the enemy, whilst at the same time you're dealing damage on itself to the enemy's health bar. And then this is the most damaging combo that I like to use for whenever you have exhausted enemies. You will have the inputs right in here, and it is like always on slow motion, but have in mind that this is something that you have to use. First is going to be your spirit skill, but the spirit skill has to be the one that breaks the enemy's stance. If you try to use this while the stance of the enemy is already exhausted or broken, it's not going to be enough time. So you have to be mindful of the stamina of the enemy. You have to break the stamina of the enemy with that specific trance attack, and then you're going to follow up with their heavy charge attack, and then forward with your dodge, and then a charge attack, and then after a brutal attack. That's the highest damaging possible that you're going to be able to inflict upon an enemy. As a matter of fact, that's the one skill that the one combination that you saw me to one-shot that boss at the start of the fight or the video. And basically that is everything that you need to know about the Greatsword. The only one downside that this has is that whenever you're fighting something like Chaos, or that is going to inflict poison into you, or basically anything, like quite literally anything, decay, that deals status elements damage to you, that you're not going to be dodging that much, and that you're going to be taking damage and tanking damage. This is a build that you're going to necessarily have to be using lots of consumables, because the status elements in this game are very, very, very annoying. But other than that, it's going to just basically break everything in front of you. If you like the content, like and never super appreciate it, and also you that you're a gorgeous and beautiful person. You are indeed a gorgeous and beautiful person. Subscribe to the channel, join Discord. Have a beautiful day and goodbye.